A hush settled over Windsor's quadrangle, as sunlight spilled across the velvet mantles of the assembled knights of the Garter. For minutes no one moved, and then something utterly unscripted happened. The frail Duke of Kent, who has shepherded this order longer than many courtiers have been alive, signalled for help to stand. He took one careful breath, and announced that he was surrendering stewardship of the world's oldest chivalric brotherhood to Katherine, Princess of Wales. A single dove-grey glove trembled as he gestured toward her. In that instant you could almost hear 6 centuries of protocol creak on its hinges. Katherine rose, offered the briefest of curtsies, and every camera on the castle wall zoomed in. The flashbulbs fired, but no one quite captured the look on Queen Camilla's face, half surprise, half something warmer that she composed before anyone could interpret. There was no rehearsal for this. Courtiers expected a tranquil ceremony, velvet trains, the stirring hymn, everyone back in time for tea. Instead the Duke rewrote the cast list on the spot, and the monarchy breathed a very public, very dangerous sigh of evolution. Why dangerous? Because the Order of the Garter was founded when chain mail still glinted in tournament sun. It has been governed by senior male royals in an unbroken sequence. Only sovereigns, consorts, or the longest-serving dukes have dared to hold its reins. Handing those reins to a woman who entered the family by marriage, not blood, is like threading a USB cord into a medieval suit of armor. It shouldn't fit. And yet, with a single sentence, it did. Just beyond the chapel doors Kamila was heard murmuring, "Well, that wasn't on the running order." Her smile afterward never cracked, though palace staff swore she blinked away a tear. Some say the emotion came from relief. The Queen is juggling literacy tours, state visits, and the King's fluctuating health. Others whisper she felt a little displaced. After all, it was Kamila whom Charles invested as a Lady of the Garter not long ago, in a gesture meant to signify her permanence. Now permanence had shifted again, and shifted toward the sparkling certainty of the public's favorite future queen. Katherine had chosen a sleek ivory Alexander McQueen peplum dress for Garter Day, a diplomatic shade that caught the light, without competing against the deep blue velvets and the scarlet plumes. Her vintage saucer hat by Sean Barrett framed her face like a halo of soft straw, the faintest nod to the late Queen's love of bold millinery. She carried no handbag, a deliberate decision so both hands could accept whatever baton history placed in them. The King, observing from his carved stall, nodded once. That nod told his inner circle everything. This was his blessing. Charles has long argued the monarchy must shrink on paper yet loom larger in hearts. Slimming the working roster meant pushing younger royals to the front line. Katherine is not just young, she is polished, battle-tested, and, crucially, civilian-born. In other words, the perfect bridge between medieval mystique and modern relatability. Her appointment achieves 2 objectives at once. It lightens the load on aging cousins and inks the monarchy's promise that capable women will stand as high as any duke when service calls. But behind every dazzling decision lies a ledger of private consequences. The Order's archives hold sealed files dating to the reign of Victoria, complaints, scandals, expulsions. One such file, stamped confidential, chronicles the only woman ever stripped of her garter riband, a suffragette sympathizer exiled for subversive correspondence. In accepting command, Katherine must decide whether to keep that name erased or restore it, knowing the precedent could shake loose scores of other historical grievances. Already a senior knight, still fuming over the modernizing tide, is rumored to have threatened resignation if political revisionism invades the choir stalls. That tension is why William appeared to squeeze his wife's hand a little longer than usual as the procession reached the chapel door. He knows she will balance charitable passion with constitutional caution, yet the tightrope is real. One slip and critics will accuse her of turning a sacred order into a social media stage. One timid step and reformers will complain the crown is still married to mothballs. Inside St. George's, the ancient hymn rose, incense drifting through sunlit dust motes. But further back, ambassadors whispered about how this appointment may buffer the throne itself. Charles's health has rallied in recent months, yet palace doctors insist stress must be managed. Shifting ceremonial burdens to a 30-something princess, who handles pressure like a Wimbledon champion, is not just symbolic, it could be strategic. Katherine's first order of business, aides say, is to create a digital archive, interactive, voice-narrated, accessible to every schoolchild with a tablet. She imagines an augmented reality tour where users can step inside Edward III's original Garter feast. Purists blanch at the idea of smartphones in cloisters. Katherine counters that reverence without relevance is museum culture, and the order is not dead marble. Next on her slate is an educational bursary for teenagers studying ethics in public life, a modern interpretation of chivalry. Applicants will be encouraged to design community projects, echoing the order's medieval mandate to protect the weak. It is a clever pivot. Rather than defend a crusty tradition, she will use that tradition to champion present-day good. Yet she is not starry-eyed about the backlash. Before Garter Day ended, she moved quietly into the Duke of Kent's private office, where a battered mahogany desk holds letters dating back to the Boer War. She asked for a single hour alone with those papers. A footman later whispered that her eyes were damp when she emerged, clutching an envelope addressed simply, "To my successor, guard the flame, not the ashes." No one knows whether she read the notorious suffragette file during that hour. But later that night, back at Adelaide Cottage, she phoned the king and mentioned an injustice I believe we can rectify together. Charles, it is said, was silent for several seconds, then replied, "One step at a time, my dear. But take the step." The public, ever hungry for palace drama, devoured the day's images. Social media crowned Katherine, Lady Commander of the Future. Polls taken within 24 hours found that over 2/3 of Britons felt proud of the shake-up, while a tenth feared it might gimmickize heritage. Newspapers ran side-by-side shots, Kamila wiping that involuntary tear, Katherine receiving the garter collar, Charles leaning heavier than usual on his ivory-topped cane. Meanwhile the Duke of Kent, back inside his private apartments, reportedly watched the footage in quiet satisfaction. He sent Katherine a note, "You will be splendid. Remember, ceremony is language, speak it clearly, but never forget to listen beyond the trumpets." That evening he placed his insignia in a velvet pouch, and asked aides to display it beside a photograph of Queen Elizabeth, at her coronation, a final salute to the lineage he served. If you're wondering whether Katherine will restore that erased suffragette, or invite a humanitarian from the Commonwealth, as the next night, stay with us. These decisions will surface at the Order's winter chapter, and insider murmurs suggest at least one elder statesman is preparing a formal protest. Tap subscribe, so you'll hear the outcome, before the tabloids spin their own version. Garter Day ended with the traditional carriage drive down the Long Walk. Onlookers cheered, but many were still processing what they had witnessed. A monarchy famous for inching forward had abruptly leapt. Beneath the clip-clop of Windsor Greys one could almost hear Diana's old admonition that the royal family must embrace change, or risk irrelevance. Here was her daughter-in-law doing exactly that, draped not in rebellion, but in silk and lineage. The crown sits on Charles's head for now, yet suddenly the future feels nearer, brighter, and, yes, unmistakably female. So where does this leave Queen Kamila? Courtiers insist she and Katherine share genuine warmth. Kamila knows better than anyone that adaptation can be a throne's best friend. Still, she has spent years climbing from scandal shadow into regal daylight, watching another woman seize the most historic office after sovereign could sting. Expect her to double down on her own causes, literacy, domestic abuse awareness, carving a complementary path rather than a competing one. The two women may yet prove the monarchy can walk in tandem, each reinforcing the other's cause. One last image lingers. As the last guests drifted away, Katherine paused under the arch leading to the horseshoe cloister. She turned back, regarded the chapel lanterns flickering against the stone, and drew a slow breath, as if tasting the iron in history's air. Some say she whispered a prayer. Others claim she simply smiled, the smile of a runner who knows the first lap has gone well, but the race stretches far ahead. Either way, the baton is firmly in her hand. The Duke of Kent has stepped off the track, the king leans on the rail, and the crowd is roaring. Tradition is still the lane marked in chalk, yet the pace, the style, the stride, those are now Katherine's to define. We will be here for every stride. So if you want to witness whether the Princess of Wales reshapes a medieval order into a beacon for the digital century, remember, subscribe before you go, so you never miss the moment she drops the next pebble in the royal pond.